So I just want to start with a brief introduction. I'm a part-time student with the University of Lethbridge. I also work as a geomatics manager at a consulting firm full-time in Edmonton. And so I wanted to design a project that I could apply both in my full-time employment as well as pursue my interest in learning and kind of develop something that would help, a tool that's going to help in reclamation. So I'm a candidate with Dr. Carl Stans at the University of Lethbridge, who's one of the remote sensing professors. The outline is going to be a brief introduction, a bit of a background, project scope and methods, proposed results, and a quick conclusion. So eye in the sky, what I'm referring to is remote sensing. So the ability to collect and analyze data without being in contact with the object. Kind of a really easy way to look at it is your eye essentially is the same thing as a satellite. So there's light coming down and you see an object such as the black table. Your eye is taking in that information and your brain processes it. So if we apply that, solar radiation comes down, reflects off of forest canopy, the Earth's surface, and it's reflected back, and a satellite collects this information. The satellite then sends information down to a receiver, which then gets processed by someone at a computer, and we're able to pull and extract information for that. So what kind of data can remote sensing provide? There's several different types. There's multispectral imagery, which you can get health and species composition information from. There's hyperspectral imagery, which you can get information on area of contamination, health, and species composition. There's radar, which is you can analyze for water extent or soil moisture. And then LiDAR, which is you can get topology of the land as well as vegetation heights. So my program is part of MOPRA, which is monitoring processes for site reclamation in Alberta. It's a three-part program. Mine focuses on monitoring for large-scale projects using multispectral and LiDAR data, as well as there's two other which focus more on well site reclamation. Chelsea King is doing hyperspectral and rapid eye information, and James Banting is working with hyperspectral and LiDAR data. So a little bit about what mine is about. For large scale, I'm referring to oil sands, coal mines, gravel pits, and using multispectral and LiDAR to analyze the trajectory that the reclamation is on. And so these large-scale disturbances quite a bit of the landscape, as so does well sites and pipelines, as we saw earlier today. Ross McKenzie presented a couple maps showing the extent of them. So it's really important that these get a reclamation certificate in the end so they can be fully returned. And so this is kind of what the program focuses on, and so I do more of the large scale. My study site is the Coal Valley Mine, which is just southwest of Edson, about 100 kilometers. It's about been in operation for about 35 years. And so there's a lot of different processes going on. There's stuff that's currently in operation, and there's stuff that's been reclaimed 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So it provides a really nice study site and a lot of variation. There's three parts that my study focuses on. One is base mapping, second is vegetation health, and the third is change detection. And so base mapping is we're taking multispectral data and we're analyzing it and categorizing it so that we have something to compare back to. What was it before it was disturbed? And so we can use multispectral data to do that. With vegetation health, we're using a combination of multispectral and LiDAR, and we're able to get the vegetation's health, its height, the biomass, so we can have an understanding of how well the vegetation is doing on that reclaimed site. And the third is change detection. So we're able to look at different time periods and see how it's progressing, or if there's areas that were good one year and then they start to decline. So it really gives either industry or the government an idea if a site visit is in order to go see it, or they can more properly structure how they're going to visit these sites, because there's something like 9,000 abandoned well sites alone, let alone all the large-scale disturbances. So there's not enough manpower to get to all of these. So which ones are more important? So the change detection helps with that, highlighting these areas. So this is kind of a quick snapshot of what I'm talking about with base mapping. And so we've categorized them, and we're using a tool called unsupervised. So it runs a program that automatically categorizes it into a certain amount of classes. And so the dark green is vegetation, and you can see all the orange and red is the disturbances. And so it kind of gives you a snapshot of what you're looking at. The second one is vegetation health. Again, this is using multispectral data. The higher or the whiter the color, the healthier the vegetation. And so you can see where the black areas are, that's all disturbance. So you can get an idea of what's healthier. It measures kind of the biomass or the greenness of the plant. So the lighter the color, the better it's doing. As well as with LiDAR, you can measure the vegetation heights. It sends millions of points that kind of reflect off the surface. And so you can get an elevational model of the surface, and then as well as the tops of the vegetation, and you can measure these differences. So you can kind of have decide whether it's meeting your trajectory of your reclamation. You know, are those trees matching the heights on where they should be, or are they stunted, or, you know, there's a couple of different ways you can use that. And then with change detection, it's also multispectral, and you're comparing different images through different time periods. So this is highlighting disturbance between two different time periods. So you can understand, you know, where a new area is being disturbed. And on the flip side, you can measure where the new areas of vegetation are coming in. And you can do this as well with the vegetation, with the vegetation indices. You can do a time change detection between the two, so you can understand where it's increasing, where it's getting better, where it's changing better or worse. So I'm kind of at the beginning of my master's. I just started this fall. So we're currently in development of the tool, but essentially it's going to be a tool that comprises of those three parts, but can be used by people that aren't remote sensors or geomatics. You know, the inspectors that go out and they inspect the sites and are signing those reclamation certificates, or it's industry who's going to use it so that they can better present their reclamation application to the government. So we really want to make a tool so that they can either use it to help their application process, or it can be identifying areas of concern or non-compliance, or monitor it so they can see if they're meeting their trajectories. So in conclusion, remote sensing can aid in reclamation monitoring and management. And the nice thing about this technology and this tool is it's something that can always evolve. You can always add more to it. You know, this project was only focusing on multispectral LiDAR, but you know, you can integrate radar, which looks into soil characteristics like moisture. So you can start adding that to the tool and really start to identify areas of concern, or areas that are doing awesome kind of thing. So also other areas like wildlife monitoring, air and water quality can also be integrated into it, which can save time and money, which is kind of the take-home note. So I just want to kind of quickly thank my supervisors, which are Dr. Carl Stantz and Nadia Roshday, Dr. Shane Patterson of AESRD, and Chris Hugenholtz and Ann Nath, who are on my supervisory committee. The project is it's a collaboration between the University of Lethbridge, the Government of Alberta, Tecterra, and Osrin.